The night before the engagement, I stumbled upon a conversation between my fiancé Feihan and his buddies. Someone asked him, "You are about to get married, happy about it?" He answered without hesitation, "Of course I am happy." My heart warmed, but then I immediately heard his cold continuation, marrying a sickly girl into the house, just waiting for her to die soon. Then no one will meddle in my business with schwanger. So it turns out he is marrying me hoping I'll die, so I can make room for his personal maid. After she dies, my father definitely won't refuse me taking schwanger as a concubine. She is just a maid. Is it really necessary? Aren't you afraid Li Yu will find out? Mensch, Feihan scoffed dismissively. So what if she finds out? What can she do? She follows me around every day like I can't shake her off, and right now I am the only one who treats her well. She simply can't leave me. Feihan's words left me frozen on the spot, my mind in a daze. If unable to believe what I'd heard, I looked toward Menga, who was supporting me. Seeing Menga looking at me with both heartache and anger, I knew I hadn't heard wrong. 14 years of feelings ultimately amounted to hoping for my death. I couldn't hold it in anymore, quickly walked to the side and coughed, actually coughing up a small pool of blood. "Miss." Munga gently patted along my spine, hurriedly pulled out a handkerchief, her eyes overflowing with heartache. "Let's go back first," I said softly. Tonight I originally wanted to find him to talk about matters between us, but I never expected to hear such heartbreaking things. Well, it is better than finding out after getting married. After returning home, I wanted to go to Uncle's study to tell him I no longer wished to be engaged to Feihan. Just as I arrived at the door of Uncle's study, I heard Aunt's voice inside. "We've raised that girl for several years now, treating her to good food and drink. If you won't consider our household, you should at least consider Yua. If Li Yu marries into the loyal and brave Marquis manor, we won't get any benefits from it. Better to give this marriage to our daughter." "What are you saying?" "The loyal Marquis manor's engagement with Yu was made in consideration of Yu's father. Moreover, Feihan and Yu grew up together since childhood. How can our Yu compare to their childhood sweetheart's bond? Big brother is already dead. Would the loyal and brave Marquis willingly marry an orphan girl? Besides, she is a sickly weakling. Sickly weakling. Again, a sickly weakling. Everyone despises me for being a sickly weakling." I secretly lowered my eyes. "Besides, our Yua has feelings for the young Marquis. She says she won't marry anyone. But the young Marquis in this lifetime, master, you must make good plans for our daughter. You go make Li Yu give up this engagement." Uncle's voice didn't sound for a long time. After quite a while, he compromised, saying, "You won't agree to it, and besides, how can an engagement be given up just like that?" "I agree." I pushed open the door, startling both uncle and aunt. Their faces showed a hint of awkwardness, but after hearing clearly what I said, they revealed surprise and delight. Aunt stepped forward a few paces, somewhat in disbelief. "Are you? What did you say you agree to?" "I agree to give up the marriage engagement, but you must return the family property my father left behind to me in advance." "Are you?" Uncle stood up. "You are just a young girl. What do you need so much money for?" "That won't trouble Uncle to worry about," I said coolly. "Does Aunt agree?" I looked toward Aunt again. Her face was full of conflicted hesitation. I pretended to sigh. "Since Uncle and Aunt don't agree, tomorrow I'll seek an audience with the Marquis to cancel the marriage." "Hey," Aunt frowned, then finally made up her mind. "Fine." My heart relaxed. I pushed away Aunt's hand that was on mine. "Then thank you, Uncle and Aunt. However, this Feihan has someone else in his heart, so Aunt should discuss it carefully with cousin. As for changing the person in the marriage arrangement, Aunt will have to personally negotiate with the Madam of the Loyal and Brave Marquis tomorrow. Then please have Uncle and Aunt transfer the family property to me as soon as possible. I'll be waiting." After saying that, I turned and left. As soon as the door closed, I heard Uncle's exasperated voice from inside. "You foolish woman, do you know how much property Big Brother left behind? All these years, all the expenses of our household have relied on what Big Brother left behind. Oh, my master, calm down, calm down. Once you are married into the Marquis's household, will we lack for anything? not hearing Uncle speak again. I held back the sourness in my eyes and left. The next day, Mengyihan got up early and put on the blue clothes that Li Yu liked most. His personal maid, Shuanga, helped him tie his waist sash with a cold expression. Seeing Shuanga's displeased look, Mengyihan gently pinched her cheek. "What is wrong, jealous?" Shuanga squirmed a bit and said in a coquettish voice, "Hemph," as if how would a maid dare to be jealous when her master is getting engaged? Mengyihan raised an eyebrow. "Is it that you don't dare or don't want to?" Shuanga finished tying the waist sash and pulled it hard. "Ouch!" Then she ran out with a flushed face. Mengyihan stood in place, looking at himself in the mirror, nodding with satisfaction. "You will definitely like it." Mengyihan walked to the entrance of the Marquise's residence and saw his mother Chen Lu, who had been waiting for a while. Chen Lu glanced at Shuanga, following behind Mengyihan without saying anything, and entered the carriage with a stern face. The maid following her observed Chen Lu's expression. "Madam, do you need me to go remind the young Marquise?" "No need," Chen Lu shouted in a low, angry voice. "That rebellious son, either mixing around with maids or with that sickly wretch. And now for the marriage proposal, he even has to bring that cheap hussy along." "Madam, don't be angry. If word gets out and the Marquise hears about it, that would be bad." The maidservant stepped forward and gently stroked Chen Lu's chest. The Marquise. "Ha! It is all his fault. Making such a hasty decision about his own son's marriage, just because that sickly girl's father died for the Marquis. Does that mean my son has to take responsibility? Before, relying on his status as the wealthiest man in Jiangnan, I could barely tolerate his daughter Li Yu, but now that Li Yu is just an orphan girl, how is she worthy of our Zhongyong Marquis' manor?" Early this morning, cousin Li Yu came to notify me, asking me to go with her to welcome the Zhongyong Marquis' wife. Watching Li Yu's happy figure from behind, I blinked my eyes. Cousin Li Yu never takes the initiative to find me. She really doesn't like me, not only because of our similar names, but also because she looks down on my family's merchant status. The similar names were actually a coincidence before. Our family had always lived in Jiangnan, and father and uncle hadn't gotten along well and hadn't been in contact for many years. Only after our two families met did we discover that the two families' daughters had such similar names. "Miss Biao, the young miss asks that you come over as soon as possible." I returned to my room to tidy up a bit, and Menga helped me fasten my cloak. She looked at me worriedly. "Is Miss all right?" I smiled and shook my head at her. "Of course I am fine, Menga. Are you willing to return to Jiangnan with me?" Menga nodded firmly. "Wherever Miss goes, I'll go." Good. Soon Mengyihan and the others arrived. I waited at the entrance with Aunt and the others. Mengyihan got down from the carriage and smiled brilliantly at me. I was dazed for a moment, then lowered my eyes, pretending not to see, while cousin shyly hid behind me. "You show the young Marquise around the residence. I'll chat with Madame Meng." "Yes, mother." Li Yu walked up to Mengyihan. "Please follow me, young Marquise." Mengyihan nodded. "Thank you, Miss Li." Li Yu walked in front. Mengyihan came to my side. "What is wrong with you? Are you feeling unwell? Have you been drinking your medicine on time lately? Do you need me to get a physician to check on you?" I pulled away from him. "I am fine, really," I nodded. "Is that so?" Mengyihan was somewhat doubtful. "Shuanga, go to Yushi House in the south of the city and buy some sweet pastries that can cheer people up for my unhappy little Ya." I looked at Shuanga following behind, her lips tightly pressed, showing some displeasure, and her eyes held resentment toward me. I looked at Mengyihan. He was making funny faces at me like usual, trying to cheer me up. Did people actually change, or were they just pretending too well? This question really had no answer. Coming back to my senses, I saw cousin standing in the distance, glaring at me. I led Mengyihan toward her. "Let's go." "Then why do you look unhappy today?" "Today we're getting engaged, little Ya." I walked forward silently, not responding. Seeing my low spirits, Mengyihan also went cold-faced and stopped talking. We sat in the pavilion. The atmosphere really couldn't be called good. Most of the time it was my cousin talking and pulling me in to say a few words. Until later, seeing that Mengyihan really didn't want to deal with people. My cousin slowly stopped talking. The pavilion fell into silence. A young servant suddenly came running over in a panic and said a few words in Mang Yihan's ear. I watched as Mang Yihan left in a hurry with a nervous and frightened expression, without leaving a single word. I played with the cup in my hand, thinking about what the servant said. He said Miss Schwanger was hit by a carriage on the way to buy pastries and injured her leg. How rude. Hearing Liu's sudden remark, I looked at her. What? Don't want to marry anymore? Liu rolled her eyes. I am not marrying him for love or for the person he is. I am doing it for wealth, honor, and status. She glanced at me. Not like you. Just because Mang Yihan loves someone else, you don't want to marry him anymore. How foolish. I didn't argue with her words and went with her to the main hall, seeing the satisfied smile on Auntie's face. I knew this matter was settled. Although Auntie was displeased about Mang Yihan leaving temporarily, she couldn't show it, but as Mang Yihan's mother, she didn't take it seriously at all. Mother Meng glanced at me. Some people are quite self-aware, knowing they can't reach so high, voluntarily stepping aside. After speaking, she sized up Liu beside me. She didn't say anything, but from years of understanding, I could still see the dissatisfaction and disdain in her eyes. And regarding this matter of switching the marriage arrangement, we all tacitly agreed not to let Mang Yihan know in the carriage. Madam, how could you agree to let them exchange marriage arrangements so casually? Chen Lu closed her eyes. Tech, one is an official's young lady, and the other is a sickly weakling with no father, no mother, and no one to rely on. Anyun would know who to choose. If it weren't for the Marquis saying before that he'd only marry a daughter of the Lai family, I wouldn't have bothered spending efforts selecting the daughter of a fifth-rank minor official to be the daughter-in-law of our loyal and brave Marquis Manor. Mang Yihan rushed out in a hurry, only to discover that Schwanger had merely sprained her ankle. He carried Schwanger onto the carriage, his expression gloomy. What incredible audacity. Now you are even pulling stunts to compete for favor. Once Yua enters the household, are you going to try to seduce me away from yours bed too? Mang Yihan gripped Schwanger's cheeks fiercely and flung her to the side. Schwanger endured the pain and thought to herself, but didn't you still come? And on such an important day as your engagement with her, no less she put on a heartbroken appearance. I beg master to forgive this servant's transgression. I was just a bit jealous of Miss Li. Master, everyone is saying that you two are childhood sweethearts with an extraordinary bond. But it is you and I who truly grew up together from childhood without ever separating. So many first times were spent with me by your side. Even Master's first time was also with this servant. So what, does all that make you think you are especially important in my heart? Mang Yihan propped his head up with one hand. Schwanger, the most important thing for a person is self-awareness. If you behave, I can still give you the position of concubine, otherwise you should just get lost. It seemed that Mang Yihan standing before her had never spoken to her with such cold words. The usual doting vanished into thin air at this moment. Schwanger's face turned pale. Yes, master. Afterwards, Mang Yihan also learned the news that the engagement had been successfully arranged. On the way back to the estate, he felt a bit uneasy, afraid that Liu would refuse their marriage because he left without saying goodbye. As expected, aside from accepting, Liu didn't have much choice, however. He should still go and coax her tomorrow. What would be a good apology gift for her? Evening. What, whose letter? I sat up and looked at Menga. Miss, it is a letter from Lord Li of Jiangnan. Quick, bring it here. I couldn't wait to get out of bed. After receiving and reading the letter, I was overjoyed beyond words. Menga, Uncle Li says that half a month from now is His Majesty's birthday banquet. He arrived in the capital early today and wants to meet me tomorrow. That is wonderful, miss. Uncle Li is the magistrate of Jiangnan and an extremely good friend of father's. He treats me very well too. When I was in Jiangnan, I often took Meng to Uncle Li's house to visit. Perhaps I can return with Uncle Li. As soon as daybreak came and the time arrived, eager to keep the appointment, I couldn't wait to get on the carriage. Not long after my carriage left, Mang Yihan's carriage arrived. Mang Yihan didn't wait for the servant at the gate to go announce him and entered the estate directly. Behind him followed servants carrying piles of gifts, leisurely walking toward the courtyard he was familiar with. On this side, I arrived at the private room in the tavern that Uncle Li had mentioned. As soon as the waiter pushed open the door, he looked up and saw a man wearing a sapphire blue brocade robe sitting by the window inside. One of his hands rested casually on the window frame, playing with a piece of jade. Hearing the movement, he stopped and turned his face to look over. His features were refined and handsome, with soft lines and no sharp edges. His eyes were slightly elongated almond-shaped eyes with drooping outer corners, and his irises were a light amber color. A pair of bright, sparkling eyes looked over. I met his eyes and instinctively looked away. Sorry, we're intruding. We must have entered the wrong room. After bowing to him, we were about to close the door and leave, but the next second he called out to me, "Liu, long time no see." Meng-Yihan walked to the courtyard gate and called out to a maid, "Tell your young miss that I've come to apologize to her." The maid lowered her head and replied, "Miss is not at the residence. Miss went out early this morning to keep an appointment." "An appointment with whom?" The maid shook her head. "This servant does not know." Meng-Yihan frowned, somewhat unhappy, but thinking of yesterday's incident he still held back. He casually found a place to sit down in the courtyard, crossed his legs and said, "Go find your young miss and bring her back. Tell her I am waiting in her courtyard. Remember, I won't wait forever." Yes. I looked at the person who had called out to me, feeling somewhat inexplicably familiar, just as I was about to open my mouth to ask. A familiar voice came from behind me, "Xiao Yu." I turned around and saw Uncle Li standing not far away, looking at me with a kind smile. "Uncle Li." I quickly walked over and threw myself into Uncle Li's arms. "Hey, good little you." He opened his arms to hug me, then looked me over and wiped away the tears at the corner of my eyes. He shook his head and sighed. "You've gotten thinner. Ah, come on, let's go eat something and get you well nourished." Just as Uncle Li was pulling me inside, I saw Menga had something to tell me. I let Uncle Li go in first, then left the room. "What is wrong?" Menga whispered a few words in my ear. I frowned. Let him do as he pleases. If he doesn't come back, we probably won't see each other again anyway. Menga nodded to show she understood, and I went into the room. Meng-Yihan, who had been waiting in the courtyard for a long time, received the news that I refused to come back. "Not coming back? Didn't you tell him what I came here for?" After getting the reply, Meng-Yihan said, "Well done, Liu. Where is your young lady?" I sat down in the seat across from that man. He kept looking at me with a smile in his eyes, his gaze constantly resting on my face. "You know me?" I looked back at him. He chuckled softly, as if helpless. "Sister Xiao Yu, it has only been 3 years, and you don't recognize me anymore." Sister Xiao Yu. I was a bit incredulous, and looked toward Uncle Li. Uncle Li stood by the side, smiling without saying a word, as if watching a good show. I carefully examined his face, and seeing me like this, he actually moved his face closer to make it easier for me to see. I looked at the mole on the tip of his nose and then saw his smiling eyes, my pupils dilating slightly. "Zhiyuan, little brother." Li Zhiyuan hummed in acknowledgement and said with a smile, "What, have I changed that much?" My eyes filled with surprise. "You look like a completely different person." He curved his lips into a smile. "I just lost some weight. That is all. Sister Xiao Yu is the one who is changed drastically. We haven't seen each other in 3 years and you've gotten so thin. Are they treating you poorly?" He looked me up and down with some heartache. "It must be so. You shouldn't have come to the capital with the loyal and brave Marquis back then." Uncle Li slapped the table in frustration. I smiled at them, so I regret it now. "Stop smiling. If you've been wronged, you've been wronged. Don't act like it is no big deal," Li Zhiyuan said with a stern face. Uncle Li snorted. "Now you know regret. Back then, no matter how Aunt Li tried to persuade you, you wouldn't listen. Your sister Min was dejected for quite a while because she couldn't keep you here." I put away my stiff smile. "I am sorry." "Sorry, just those 2 simple words." Uncle Li looked at me and softened his voice. "I can see you regret it. How about this? Once His Majesty's birthday is over, come back to Jiangnan with us." Meng-Yihan didn't even take the carriage and rushed angrily to the restaurant where Li Yu had her appointment. I want to see just who in this capital could make Li Yu stand me up. Just as she stepped onto the bridge opposite the tavern, Meng Yihan looked up and saw the half-open window on the top floor, where the person smiling cheerfully at the opposite side was none other than Li Yu, whom Meng Yihan was looking for. Meng Yihan was displeased. Well, well, laughing so happily, yet yesterday she gave me such a cold face. Just as Meng Yihan continued walking toward the tavern, a handsome man in blue robes stepped forward and closed the window. Meng Yihan's footsteps came to an abrupt halt. Staring at the window for a long while, Meng Yihan sneered coldly and smashed the gift she had prepared to give her personally onto the ground. So she is latched onto someone else. Fine, Li Yu, how wonderful of you. Meng Yihan turned and left, venting her anger loudly at the servant following her. From now on, if Li Yu comes looking for me, make her wait outside. I won't see her. Since last meeting with Uncle Li and the others, Uncle Li and Li Jiyuan have been frequently taking me out to have fun and eat. And with Uncle Li as witness, Uncle and Aunt personally returned to me the family property my father left behind. After talking with Uncle Li, I began sorting through my luggage. Aside from the things I brought from Jiangnan before, I didn't plan to take anything else. Opening the chest at the foot of the bed, inside were things I once valued greatly. I took them out one by one: kites, bamboo dragonflies, portraits of me as a child, clay figurines, all were memories from my childhood, but most of these memories had another person's presence in them. Meng Yihan. When I was 3 years old, I first met Meng Yihan at Uncle Li's residence. At that time, Meng's father was the military governor of Jiangnan and hadn't yet been granted the title of loyal and brave marquis for his great achievements. His mother, Chen Lu, was unwilling to follow Meng's father to Jiangnan and stayed in the capital. Meng Yihan timidly hid behind his father. And at that time, Meng's father and Uncle Li had important matters to discuss. Meng Yihan clung to his father's leg and refused to leave no matter what. Just then, father and I, who was being held in father's arms, happened to run into them. Father looked at me and gave me a hint with his eyes, quietly saying in my ear, "Little Yu, shall we take big brother to play together?" After saying that, he put me down. I stood on the ground, looking at father and then at Meng Yihan with his reddened eyes. I took small steps toward him and reached out my hand. "Little big brother, do you want to play with little Yu? Little Yu knows all kinds of little games." But Meng Yihan shrank back even more. I looked up at the burly Meng's father in front of me. "Uncle, little big brother is really timid, huh?" After I spoke, Meng's father laughed. "Yeah, he is just very timid. You are called little Yu." I nodded. "Yes, Yu as in elm tree, because my health isn't good. My father wants me to be strong like an elm tree, so he named me Li Yu." After hearing my words, Meng's father's eyes showed more sympathy. What struck me most was the meaning in her name. Elm trees have deep roots and can endure barren soil, growing tenaciously, no matter how harsh the environment. Just like what the female lead went through later, betrayed by her fiancé and schemed against by her relatives. Yet she could still decisively let go and reclaim her own life. It turns out her resilience was destined from her name all along. But in the next second, a hand gently grabbed my hand that I had put down. I looked again at the person holding my hand. Meng Yihan's eyes were still red, but now his face was completely flushed too. "I'll go play with you." So from that day on, Meng Yihan and I became good friends. He had a bad temper, but in front of me he was so well behaved it was unbelievable. Whenever he had time, he would come find me to play. Playing hide and seek together, playing cat's cradle together, flying kites together, playing with mud together. Even Father Meng, seeing how Meng Yihan was in front of me, said, "This hot-tempered and arrogant boy only behaves himself a bit in front of little Yu." It is just that later, when we went to the capital, he was never like that in front of me again. At age 14, the Crown Prince came to Jiangnan for an inspection and was ambushed by assassins. At that banquet, Father was pierced through the chest by a sword while protecting Father Meng, who was covering the Crown Prince's retreat. He died. At that time, I was waiting at home for Father to bring me the pastries he had promised to buy before leaving. Then I saw Aunt Li and Sister Min hurrying into the residence. Aunt Li hugged me, her tears falling onto my neck. Her voice was gentle with a choked sob, each word falling into my ears. And so from that day on, I became an orphan without father or mother. Having suffered such a tremendous blow, my health deteriorated day by day. Uncle Lee and Aunt Lee came to see me almost every day, and even Sister Min moved directly into the manor to keep me company every day. I was very grateful. Meng Yihan also came every day but never appeared before me. He just stood silently outside the door, perhaps feeling guilty. After my injuries healed, Father Meng, who had been promoted for his merit in saving the emperor, came to the manor, looking at me lying in bed with a pale face. He too remained silent without speaking. At that time, I was immersed in sorrowful emotions and didn't want to deal with anything from the outside world. I was thinking whether I should hate or not. Who should I hate? Hate father for abandoning me, hate the Meng family, or hate the crown prince, hate the assassins. But once my emotions stabilized, I understood that I couldn't hate Father Meng, whom father had traded his life to save, couldn't hate the crown prince who knew nothing, couldn't hate father who risked his life to save others, despite knowing his family was waiting at home. The only ones I should hate are those assassins and the mastermind behind them. And fortunately, the emperor ordered a thorough investigation, and all those people were imprisoned and executed. Once the matter ended, everyone got the outcome they deserved. But so what if I understand all this? Hatred and resentment still grew in my heart. Those who should be rewarded were rewarded. Those who should be punished were punished. Except for me, Father Meng, for his merit in saving the emperor, was promoted in rank and position. Uncle Lee, who, as the governor of Zhongnan, was originally supposed to move to the capital for a promotion, should never have the chance to take up a post in the capital again because of the crown prince's assassination. I became an orphan girl with no father or mother, and as an orphan girl, what should I do? As soon as Dad died, all kinds of demons and monsters swarmed over, scrambling to take care of me, but this was only for the family fortune behind me. Uncle Lee insisted against all opposition that he wanted to take me in, but all the gossip and slander fell on Uncle Lee, saying that Uncle Lee, who had no blood relation with me, wanted to take me in only for the family fortune I had behind me. Those people with hideous faces like monsters pinned all the nasty words on Uncle Lee. At that time, Uncle Lee was already overwhelmed with troubles because of the crown prince's matter, but he still persisted. I understood that Uncle Lee, Aunt Lee, and their family were the only ones who truly cared about me. So I couldn't let them fall into the whirlpool of public opinion, couldn't let them be slandered and used by those with ulterior motives. So I chose my uncle, who looked a lot like father, but whom I'd only met a few times. And the Meng family, because of the life-saving debt they owed my father, announced the engagement between the Lai family and the Meng family in front of everyone, and even forcefully stated that no one was allowed to take my family property without permission. It had to be returned to me when I turned 18. Then I went to the capital together with my uncle and the newly promoted Meng family. When we first arrived in the capital, my uncle and aunt treated me well. But as time went on, they showed their true colors. After Meng Yihan found out, he came to see me every day to keep me company, to make me happy. He took me wherever he went to play, and introduced me to his new friends. At first, I harbored hatred in my heart toward him and his family, but as I became isolated and helpless in the capital, Meng Yihan's companionship became my support. The hatred made me resent myself for being this way, yet my heart couldn't leave Meng Yihan. Guilt, self-blame, and inner conflict often suffocated me. No, it is finally over. After checking the contents of the box, I closed it again. Menga, take it out and throw it away. Everyone in the Zhongyong Marquis manor has been walking on eggshells lately, afraid of provoking the young Marquis. Meng Yihan's temper has been really bad recently. The slightest displeasure could trigger his fury. Even Shuang'er, who has always been by his side, has rarely spoken in front of him these past few days. Like any other day, Meng Yihan sat in his study holding a brush, seemingly writing very seriously. In reality, the paper only had ink smudged together in a mess. Shuang'er waited beside him. Today, did anyone come looking for me? Meng Yihan brought it up as if casually. Shuang'er looked up and thought carefully, replying to Master, no one did. Not hearing the answer he wanted, Meng Yihan abruptly put down the brush. Master Shuanga was startled and stepped forward, looking at Meng Yihan with some concern. Meng Yihan stared at Shuanga before him, whose eyes were filled with worry, pulled her into his arms and touched her face. Shuanga, do you think I am too nice, which is why some people have no scruples whatsoever? Master is naturally good, Shuanga answered subconsciously. Meng Yihan frowned, dissatisfied with this answer, and pushed her out of his arms. Shuanga immediately knelt on the ground. This slave was wrong. Meng Yihan ignored her, his hand subconsciously touching the jade pendant at his waist. After caressing it for a while, he seemed to realize that this jade pendant was given to him by Li Yu. He became annoyed and yanked the jade pendant off. Recalling the scene from that day, he stared at the jade pendant with an inscrutable look in his eyes. Now that you have someone else, you've forgotten about me. The more he thought about it, the angrier he got, raising his hand ready to throw the jade pendant away forcefully, just at the moment he was about to throw it. Meng Yihan stopped. He took a deep breath. He tossed the jade pendant onto the desk and said to Shuanga, "It is yours now." Shuanga looked at the jade pendant on the desk, her eyes filled with pleasant surprise. "Thank you, Master." Hamph. Meng Yihan got up and left. "Li Yu, if you don't come looking for me, then never come looking for me again." The Emperor's longevity banquet would soon begin. The entire capital was decorated festively for the Emperor's birthday, with everyone wearing smiles to show their joy for the Emperor's birthday. The loyal and brave Marquis Manor. Meng Yihan learned that his father had already withdrawn from his duties outside and rushed back to the capital for the longevity banquet, and had arrived home. He hadn't seen his father in a long time, so he wanted to have a good chat with him. But just as he approached the front hall, he heard his father and mother arguing. "Why didn't you discuss such a big matter with me?" "A big deal? What kind of big deal is this?" "It is just switching to a different person." Meng Yihan frowned. "What happened? Switching to a different person?" Father Meng raised his voice. "Is this something you can just casually switch? How will others view our loyal and brave Marquis Manor? Everyone will say we're ungrateful." Chen Lu said disdainfully. "Only you keep it in your heart. Who still remembers Li Ming now? Who still remembers he died for you? Only you yourself. If you won't properly consider your son's lifelong matter, am I not allowed to consider it?" "Uncle Li, my lifelong matter?" Meng Yihan thought. What on earth are they talking about? Besides, we're just switching Hannah's fiancé to Li Yu's cousin. She is still a daughter of the Li family, so you are still repaying the debt of gratitude. Meng Yihan froze in place. My fiancé has been switched to Li Yu's cousin. You, what exactly are you doing? What about little Yu? Her. She agreed to it herself, and she was the one who personally brought it up to her aunt. Marquis, the daughter-in-law you want. She doesn't even want to be one. Mother. Meng Yihan stiffly walked to the doorway, supporting himself on the doorframe. What did you say? Li Yu, she personally proposed that she doesn't want to marry me. The scene suddenly became quiet. Seeing Meng Yihan had arrived, Father Meng vigorously shook his sleeves and turned his back. Chen Lu restrained the expression on her face. Yes, she personally proposed it. Meng Yihan's face showed disbelief. Why? Chen Lu answered irritably. Why? Why? How would I know why? Seeing Meng Yihan's lost and helpless look, Chen Lu was displeased. Don't look like you are half dead. It is not like she is the only one for you. Meng Yihan blinked his lashes. Am I not set on her alone? He had already imagined what their wedding would be like. How could this happen? How could Li Yu do this? Meng Yihan suddenly turned around and ran toward the Li residence. Until he learned that Li Yu had proactively proposed the marriage substitution, his first reaction wasn't to reflect on his own mistakes, but shock and anger, immediately running toward the Li residence. He had never considered that those hurtful words of his, that perfunctory companionship, had long exhausted Li Yu's sincere heart. Because of the departure the day after tomorrow, at this moment my heart is rarely relaxed. Uncle and aunt are so afraid of any mistake with the Emperor's birthday gift that the entire household is extremely busy. I sit leisurely in my own courtyard playing with the wooden puzzle that Li Zhiyuan gave me. Liu, Meng Yihan's voice from outside the courtyard approaches from far to near. I prop my chin and pretend not to hear. Liu, Meng Yihan walks to a nearby spot and sees me acting oblivious to everything outside, his chest heaving even faster. He quickly steps forward, grabs my shoulders and turns me around. Who gave you permission to substitute the marriage on your own, huh? Have you considered my feelings at all? I frown without speaking, seeing Shuanga hurrying after him with small steps behind him, then turned to stare at him instead. Speak. Meng Yihan's eyes were bloodshot, as if extremely agitated. I pushed away his hand that was pressing on me. You are hurting me. My voice was as calm as a frozen lake surface, without even a ripple. The gentle force struck him like a heavy blow, and he staggered. This calmness obviously pierced him more thoroughly than any fierce rebuttal. The furious, wounded expression on his face instantly froze, then shattered into a bewildered disbelief. You, how are you, so calm? Meng Yihan fell silent for a moment, then picked up the conversation again. Did we have some misunderstanding that we didn't talk through properly? Xiao Yu, how could you suddenly make this decision? Our feelings for each other over all these years aren't fake. If I did something that upset you, I apologize. The suddenly loud voice made my ears uncomfortable. Something that upset me. My gaze fell on Shuanga behind him, who looked shocked and uncertain. Shuanga instinctively shrank back and avoided my eyes. My gaze then fell on the familiar jade pendant at her waist. Seeing me staring at Shuanga, Meng Yihan's expression changed slightly. Then, when he saw me staring motionlessly at the jade pendant at Shuanga's waist, his face turned pale all at once, and he started explaining, Xiao Yu, you, listen to me. I looked at him, indicating for him to continue. Under my gaze, his voice grew smaller and smaller. I just asked Shuanga to help me keep it safe for a bit. Oh. I nodded to show I understood. Meng Yihan's eyes flashed with delight. Xiao Yu, you are not angry. Why would I be angry? I turned my head and continued picking up a puzzle piece to place it in the correct position. You and I don't have any relationship anyway. His tall frame swayed. Liu, where exactly do you put our 14 years of feelings? What did I do wrong? Or are you being fickle and have your eye on another man? That man in blue at the restaurant that day. My hand holding the puzzle piece froze. Seeing my unusual reaction, Meng Yihan's face instantly darkened. You really have your eye on another man, Liu. I am really what? I stood up and looked at him. Meng Yihan, don't assume everyone is the same kind of person as you are. I stared into his eyes, repeating word by word what he said that day. Marrying a sickly girl, just waiting for her to die early, then no one will interfere with me and Shuanga. After she dies, my father definitely won't refuse me elevating Shuanga to concubine. She is just a maid. Is it necessary? Aren't you afraid Liu will find out? So what if she finds out? What can she do? She follows me around every day, like I can't shake her off. And besides, I am the only one who treats her well now. She simply can't leave me. Meng Yihan's face grew paler and paler with my words, and in those eyes that were always bright and spirited, but now filled with bloodshot veins, something completely extinguished, shattered, leaving only a hollow, deathly grey. Weren't all these words spoken by you personally, young Master Meng? Xiao Yu. I walked between him and Shuanga, raised my finger and pointed between the two of them. You two, exactly when did you hook up? That is right, you are together every moment, I just can't compare. Meng Yihan's face turned ashen, his lips trembling. Want to make excuses? Meng Yihan, I never knew you'd been wishing for my death all along. I didn't. Meng Yihan stepped forward a few paces, but stopped under my cold gaze. I just misspoke after drinking. Misspoke after drinking. I laughed lightly, walked in front of Shuanga, and hooked the jade pendant to pull it off. Shuanga, has the leg you injured that day healed? As soon as my words fell, both of them looked at me in shock. I smiled. Meng Yihan, you also mentioned our 14 years of feelings. 14 years of feelings and you wish for my death. 14 years of feelings and at what you thought was our engagement banquet, you abandoned me for your personal maid. It is fortunate I found out. If I hadn't known these things and married you and still hadn't died. Meng Yihan, what would you two do? Kill me. I wouldn't. Xiao Yu, you can't think like that. Seeing I had no reaction to what he said, Meng Yihan wanted to continue speaking. I interrupted him. Stop talking. You came just to ask why I switched the marriage arrangement. Now you know. Young Master Meng, I won't see you out. Please leave. Munga, see the guest out, Xiao Yu. Meng Yihan, stop pestering me. Your family owes me plenty. You'd better be careful from now on, or I'll kick you when you are down. Menga and several maids stood in front of me, gesturing for Meng Yihan to leave. I also put away the wooden puzzle pieces on the stone table and went into my room. Meng Yihan stood there, watching my retreating figure disappear. He lingered for a long while before leaving. Today's events also reached Li Yu's ears. She scattered fish food into the pond, personal maid. Li Yu teased the goldfish in the pond, not knowing whether she was talking to herself or to the maid beside her. Tell me, between a properly married wife and a mere little maid, who would he choose? So what if there are feelings? If I want him, he can only choose me. Li Yu threw all the fish food into the pond and stood up with a cold laugh. Men, they're all the same damn way. The longevity banquet, the emperor's birthday. After the morning court ceremony that day, civil and military officials, vassal state envoys and others would offer birthday wishes to the emperor at the banquet, with the entire nation celebrating for a day. I handed over my prepared luggage to Uncle Lai's people. Just waiting to leave first thing tomorrow morning. Outside the door, Meng Yihan had people bring many things again, saying they were apologies, only begging that I could forgive him. I accepted them and had Menga take those priceless items to exchange for banknotes that would be easy to carry, but I didn't choose to forgive him. At the longevity banquet, Meng Yihan saw the man in blue from that day. Only then did he realize that he was actually the chubby little kid Li Ziyuan from before. Meng Yihan's pupils constricted as he finally understood that he had misunderstood Li Yu that day. Li Ziyuan also saw him at the same time. He disdainfully raised his eyebrows at Meng Yihan and silently mouthed, "Shameless idiot." Meng Yihan clearly saw what he was saying and felt angry in his heart, yet also felt he was right. Meng Yihan dejectedly lowered his head. He thought he would definitely make Li Yu change her mind, definitely. So, when the longevity banquet ended, he couldn't wait to go to the Li residence. But after arriving, he learnt that Li Yu wasn't at the residence. She had gone out with Li Ziyuan together. Meng Yihan hurriedly rushed to the place where she and Li Ziyuan had arranged to meet. Rushing and hurrying, he finally made it to the place, only to learn that they had already gone back. Meng Yihan was panting, looking somewhat disheveled. He thought he'd come back tomorrow anyway, since there was still plenty of time. Xiao Yu was just angry. Maybe after a while her anger would subside. Then he touched his empty waist, not finding that familiar jade pendant. He thought he should get that jade pendant back and keep it safe. That jade pendant was something he and Li Yu made together. He had to go find her. Evening, drizzling rain, wetting the bluestone road, leaving the capital. I had just finished washing up when I heard rustling sounds coming from outside. This sound was exceptionally familiar. Back when I first came to the capital, this sound would ring out from behind the courtyard every night. I opened the window. Meng Yihan stood right outside the window, his dark brocade robe drenched by the rain, black hair plastered to his cheeks, disheveled yet unable to hide the bloodshot eyes beneath. In his arms he half held the wooden box I was familiar with, the one I had Menga throw out that day. Seeing me appear, his voice was hoarse. "Li Yu." His voice carried exhaustion and barely concealed remorse. "Why did you throw these things away? If I hadn't climbed in through the back gate tonight, these would have been taken by the street sweepers." I stood above him, looking down at him with lowered eyes. Meng Yihan's heart tightened. He took half a step forward, but was forced to stop by my silent aloofness. I know it is my fault. I wronged you." He raised the wooden box in his hands, his fingertips turning white from gripping it. "This surely you haven't forgotten. Inside are things from when we were little." My gaze fell on the wooden box without a ripple, only saying flatly, "Of course I remember. I personally ordered someone to throw it out. What young Marquis Meng has taken an interest in picking through trash now? That is not it." Meng Yihan panicked, his voice trembling. Xiao Yu, I know I was wrong, I really know it now. I'll do whatever you ask, even if you want me to break these legs of mine to atone. I am willing, I just beg you not to leave me. As he spoke, he actually started to bend his knees to kneel. I withdrew my gaze, avoiding his almost pitiful posture, my tone still flat. Stop this already. The way you are pestering me now makes it hard for me to recall how bold and ambitious you were at the tavern that night. But isn't this all you? I raised my eyes, looking at him properly for the last time. Those eyes that once held joy for him now contained only icy coldness. Meng Yihan, words spoken are like water spilled. They can't be taken back, and the hurt and pain I suffered because of your words can't be erased either. You said it with your own mouth and you planned for it too. If I forgive you, I can't guarantee you won't have such thoughts again in the future, so you simply don't deserve to be forgiven. I just misspoke after drinking. Meng Yihan's throat choked up, those belated regrets cutting into his heart like knives. But whatever he said seemed pale and powerless, and he could only blame everything on the alcohol that night. Whether it was a drunken slip of the tongue or what you truly thought, you know it clearly in your own heart. I let out a soft sigh as if driving away something annoying. Let's just leave it at that. I don't want to say anything more. Your Meng family is really detestable. Also, please leave soon. After speaking, I lowered the window, completely shutting Meng Yihan and his heart full of regret outside the window. The rain was still falling, and the wooden box in Meng Yihan's hand dropped to the ground with a thud. The bamboo dragonfly, clay figurines, and other little trinkets inside scattered all over the ground, mixed with muddy water. He watched the departing carriage, filled with regret. How could 14 years of feelings just disappear like that? He looked at the things on the ground being washed by rainwater and covered with mud, just like his heart being covered by something indescribable. Unwilling to accept it, he shouted at the person by the window. Li Yu, are you really gonna just watch me marry your cousin? Won't you regret it? The candlelight inside went out after he finished speaking, and no one pushed open the window like usual to look at him with teary eyes anymore. In the early morning, the rain kept falling without stopping. As soon as I left the Li residence, I saw Li Jiyuan, who had come to pick me up. He was holding an oiled paper umbrella, standing under the eaves, with Uncle Li riding a horse not far away. Let's go, Sister Xiao Yu. I looked at the smiling Li Jiyuan. Okay. He took the not-so-heavy bundle from my hand. Let's go home. I sat in the carriage, and Menga sat on the shaft, both of us smiling with our eyes curved. The sound of horse neighing and hoofbeats rang out. I thought finally going home. Meng Yihan only found out that afternoon when Li Yu left that Li Yu had already left the capital. He had originally come to the Li residence intending to persuade Li Yu to change her mind once more, but was told that Li Yu had long since left and returned to Jiangnan. Meng Yihan's heart felt as if something was squeezing it, a dull pain spreading along his blood vessels. Jiangnan, he staggered forward, wanting to chase after her, but was pursued and brought back by people his mother had sent. Chen Lu looked at the dazed and confused Meng Yihan before her, frowning with disdain. What are you doing? Is this necessary? Meng Yihan looked at his mother. Why did you agree to let them swap Xiao Yu out? It is all your fault. Chen Lu laughed coldly. Blame me. It was you yourself who did things that hurt Li Yu's heart, making her have this idea. Instead of blaming yourself for being fickle, you blame me. Don't you think that is ridiculous? Hearing these words, Meng Yihan froze in place. Stop with that look. Your father has already decided that after you are married, he'll take you to the frontier to gild your resume. Otherwise, as the heir to the loyal and brave marquis, without a single achievement to your name, wouldn't that make people laugh their heads off? I won't get married, and I won't go to the frontier. I am going back to Jiangnan. I am going to find Li Yu, seeing Meng Yihan's pathetic state. Chen Lu impatiently said, That is not up to you. I really don't know how your father raised you like this in Jiangnan. A complete waste. Just don't go dying at the frontier. Chen Lu flicked her sleeves and left Meng Yihan standing there alone in a daze, so she really had left. He raised his hand to press against his throbbing temples, a fishy sweetness surging up his throat. Only then did he realize in shock that the person he had taken for granted would always be by his side had actually been lost by his own hands, never to be found again. 1 year after returning to Jiangnan, I had already personally managed and built up father's shop in Jiangnan. Me days were comfortable and relaxed, spending each day with Sister Min chatting, playing chess, and having fun together. Aunt Li would often make medicinal soups for me to nourish my body. And recently, younger brother Zhiyuan met a girl he fancied, dressing up all fancy every day and running out hoping to bump into her, which Sister Min teased him endlessly about. I hadn't thought about those tense days back in the capital for a long time. And recently I heard news about Meng Yihan from Uncle Li. He fell into an enemy ambush at the border and lost the use of one leg. Uncle Li said it was because Meng Yihan didn't heed Father Meng's orders and was too aggressive, which led to it. I had no reaction at all, only thinking about how to get Sister Min to go with me to the countryside estate and give her pretty clothes and jewelry. Ah, such troubles.